The last time I was with y'all up in the Bronx was actually over a year ago now, so that feels really crazy. I wish we could all, be here together, but it's for our safety. So I'm glad we can still connect this way. I am just gonna try to get the chat window back open so I can. Cool. So today I will be talking about conversational AI with Google Hangouts chatbots. I work in G Suite developer relations, so I'll talk a little bit more about what that is. But for the last few months, I have been experimenting with chatbots. So today I'll specifically be talking about Hangouts chat, but almost all of the APIs and SDKs that I'll be talking about are actually platform agnostic. So you can use them on whatever platform you choose. Maybe you really like Slack. Maybe some of y'all have actually built Slack bots, but there's, Messenger, there's Google Assistant, a lot of different ways that we can actually build stuff for chat. Okay, so who am I? Why am I talking? My name is Ania Srivastava, and I've been an engineer for about 6 years. I live in New York now, but I grew up in Houston, Texas, and one of my friends from back home in Houston is on the chat as well. Houston is where Beyonce is from, just FYI. And yeah. So the team I'm on is called G Suite Developer Relations. So hopefully some of these icons look familiar to you. There's Docs and Drive and Gmail. Maybe you use them day to day. Maybe you use them at work. G Suite is just the name of the collection of the family of office productivity tools. And in developer relations, we talk about the developer side of these products. So all of these products have APIs that you can use, and you don't even have to have like an enterprise G Suite account to use them. You can use the APIs for free. So when I do stuff on my own, I use my personal Gmail account, and I'm still able to call these APIs without having to pay for them. So we're going to start by laying the foundation of how to build chatbots, doing everything programmatically. Today I'll actually be talking about using Node in Cloud Functions. Then we will talk about how to really make these chatbots more user-friendly and flexible and robust by using a tool called Dialog Flow. So that is a conversational AI service. So I'll show you how you can quickly get started by training a chat agent to be more human. So I think all this machine learning stuff is really juicy and exciting. So let's quickly go over the foundation so we can get to that part of the talk. Everyone good?
I think that was the first time. I don't know.
So chatbots have actually been around since 90s. So why are we talking about them now? Well, companies and consulting firms have done a lot of research about like how businesses are making more of their technology online and using the internet. And even though we have a lot of mobile apps, it turns out that you can do some of the same actions in chat, and that's a little bit more lightweight than having to, build and test a mobile app and deploy. Not everything, but some things. So bots and Hangouts. Chat is all about communication and collaboration, and it's even more crucial to our daily work since a lot of us are working remotely, we're not in offices or at school on campus together. So here are some of the technical use cases that you could use a chatbot for. So the first one is asynchronous notification. So that is something happens in my server or my app, and I want to push a notification in a chat room. So, one kind of fun example would be like maybe you have a birthday bot that checks at 9 a.m. every day. Is it someone's birthday in the room, and they put a little like fun meme or something. The next use case is one-off actions. So the example that we have here is a screenshot of a project management app. So maybe your company or your organization uses one of these project management services, but for certain tasks, like just creating a new one, you can just do it in the chatbot. So that kind of augments that whole experience. Then the next one is querying for information. So maybe you just want to look something up in a database or some API call. Both of the demos I'll be showing today are query type bots. So it's grabbing information from somewhere else and displaying it in your chat room. So for Hangouts, there are a lot of different ways to implement a bot and then have it show up in chat. So the first one is HTTP or webhooks. This is actually pretty flexible. It kind of means anything, just any platform or service that you connect by a URL to your chatbot. So you can build any sort of framework app, and then as long as it's pushing the format of the cards or the text responses to chat at agreed upon HTTP URL, that can serve your chatbot. So that's the first category. The middle category is Cloud PubSub. So PubSub is a product. Google has one called just Cloud PubSub. PubSub stands for Publish Subscriber. So it's how different services can talk to each other by passing messages. And PubSub kind of holds the messages while your subscribers get that data. So this can be really helpful if you're doing things in between firewalls. But you'd have a publisher or a service that passes the messages, and then your subscriber would be chat, and then once it gets a message, something happened, then your code would render the response for the chat room. And then last is AppScript. If you've done G Suite development before, you may have encountered AppScript. It is actually a whole language of its own. It's a lightweight version of JavaScript, and it has some built-in libraries that integrate like into the UI of certain G Suite products. The fastest way to get a chatbot up is AppScript, in my opinion, but we'll be actually talking about JavaScript today because we want to integrate with other services. So let's start with our first demo. This is actually a real use case that came up in the office. So in developer relations, we go and talk to developers all over the world and online, fielding questions. And then a lot of times, the sales team are actually the best people to answer questions. And the way that it works is that we have people on that side of cloud, our department, who own certain accounts. So a lot of my job is passing questions, and most of the times it's through chat. So we have spreadsheets where we keep track of like who's working on what, and you know, I have to like remember where all the spreadsheets are. I have to load them, figure out who to contact next, and the next thing I'm going to do is just open another chat window. So it just kind of be easier if I just do it all in chat. So I made a scrub version of this. This is obviously all very fake data. So let's see how this chatbot is going to work. What goes into those question marks? So I'm actually going to use Google Cloud Functions. They are one of the products in our serverless family. And I saw that y'all do a lot of Firebase stuff, so, you know, similar to Firebase functions. But they are serverless, which means like it's not that there are no servers involved. It's just that me as a developer, I don't have to worry about where they are, how much memory is on them, like the configuration. I don't have to worry if I need to apply a security patch or something. All I have to do is worry about my code and uploading it to the cloud, and then the cloud provider places and scales it for you. So they react to events. You can actually chain them to certain cloud things, like maybe I load a file in cloud storage, and every time I do that in a certain bucket, I want some analysis to happen automatically. That's why you'd use a function for that. For us, we're going to be doing an HTTP bot, so we'll be using an HTTP cloud function. So that's like how we're going to run the code. What goes in the code? Well, we need to work with Sheets. And you know, I know Sheets the product, but how do I work with it inside of a cloud function? We use the Sheets API. So I'm using Node. So this is the package I install into my local directory, Google APIs. This actually has like a whole host of different APIs outside of, it has all the G Suite ones, but I think it has like stuff like maps and other services in there as well. This is just a really quick intro into Sheets. This is actually like straight from a quick start. It's different than working with a regular database. Your code is going to look different, but it actually, the experience is kind of the same as if you were working with Sheets in the browser. Like we index cells the same way, and that spreadsheet ID is the same spreadsheet or the same ID you see in the browser URL. So let's actually see this demo working. Okay, can everyone still see me? Okay, cool. So I am going to I'm going to create a fresh new room. And then I'm going to add my bot. I called it Node Accounts Bot just so I wouldn't lose track of it. Okay, so let's say I want to know who owns the Acme account. Okay, whew. So that is the response. It is a formatted card. And the way that you make cards with this API is you craft a JSON. So let me get back to my presentation. Okay, cool. So these are the way the cards look. If I look up an account that doesn't exist, I create this error card that has a button where I can go check the sheet. You know, maybe it's just not up to date. So this is the way the system works now that we've filled in the question mark. We start with Sheets, a tool that our coworkers were already using, and then we connect it to chat using a cloud function. And that example, I don't have like a nice short URL for the actual code that looks up the sheet, but if you just search on GitHub for G Suite Devs and Hangouts chat samples, you'll see it in there. So more about cards. What's nice about them is that it's JSON, so we know how to craft them. And then they also render the same on web or mobile. So as a developer, I don't have to worry, about screen size. Is it going to look right? Like it's just handled for me. So it's nice because, sometimes you're on the go, but you want to do something. So you can just do it on your phone. So you have a lot of different options with the cards. You can make widgets like images, some basic formatting, and buttons. This is just an example of what part of a card might look like. So you'll just have some JSON constructors in your code. So I told you that was a real use case, but that seemed like a pretty small spreadsheet. This is the real spreadsheet. Let me open it up. Okay, everyone can still see me? And we're looking at a spreadsheet? Okay, great. So we have a lot of people in these departments, and the way that it works is it's not just a simple lookup of who owns what account. In my opinion, this is one of the more complicated spreadsheets I've ever seen, but maybe you've seen a lot worse than I have. But the way that it works is that everyone's grouped into clusters, and those clusters have certain accounts that they are responsible for. So this is all scrubbed data, but I took the exact formatting of a sheet that one of our international teams uses. So I replaced the company names with other Google products. So pretend that Maps is some company that has an account with us. So within each cluster, you have a team, and then you have some people who are specialist engineers. So you'll have people who specialize in security or G Suite or infrastructure. And then you also have the account managers. So it turns into this three-way lookup because you need to know what account that they're talking about. That way you can find out the cluster. And then within the cluster, you need to know what role, account manager or engineer. And then you need to know the skill. So remember these three things: account, role, and skill. How are we going to do this? If we were to code a chatbot kind of out of the box, maybe I could do this by having a user give me all three entities in a certain order so my chatbot would understand it. But that seems kind of hard. I know I would forget, what order they need to come in. Maybe I misspell something. It's not really like a natural conversational experience. And if something's too hard with an app, you're not going to do it. So let's figure out how to make it more natural. This is where Dialog Flow comes in. So it is something that will help us make this natural conversational experience. You can see in this example, what it does is it breaks up those input strings into variables that I can work with. So it is a service. It has an API SDK, so you can integrate it to whatever you're already writing. And what it does is it connects you to some pre-trained models that understand natural human language and allows you to translate it into pieces of code that you can work with. So Dialog Flow is going to sit in between the chat room and the spreadsheet in my system. So what am I actually talking about? Because a few months ago that actually wouldn't have made any sense to me at all. Well, let's say I have this, this is just an illustrative example. Let's say I have this weather bot and I ask, will it rain today? Will it rain today is functionally the same thing as asking, what's the weather today in New York, July 19th? I don't want to have to code every single type of input the user might give me. So what Dialog Flow does is breaks it down. So this right here, this I can work with to figure out how to respond to the user. So that's what it's doing for me. I love this graphic, but it's kind of old, and unfortunately it was raining in Amsterdam that day. So a little bit of history about Dialogflow. It's actually another company that Google bought a few years ago, and they integrated it into the cloud family. So let's actually go back to the chat room and see if it works. So I have a second bot that uses Dialogflow. I call it my smart accounts bot. And let's ask it to do some lookups in the sheet. So let's start with who is on Gmail, pretend we have like a Gmail account, for data management. So I actually only gave it 2 pieces of information. So let's see what happens. And I also misspelled management. So do I want to look at the details of account manager or specialist? Okay, good. So Dialogflow knows that it's missing something to give me back that person. So it asked me for a follow-up. Oops. Having some latency issues, but I actually just ran this a few minutes ago. And who's on Gmail for data management? Then I did account manager or specialist. I did specialist. And then I got Jolene Penny. So then I get back this nice card with some of her contact info. So we have email and we have location. So if you're using G Suite, like we do at work actually, you can use contacts to store all that information. But maybe wherever you're working, you're using some other service and it has an API. So you could integrate that into your function that fulfills your chatbot. And then this image down here, it's there's a maps API I just learned about, maybe you've used it before, called static maps, where you can actually generate these map images and stick them into whatever front end you're building. So you encode the location and then you can give it a size and it'll show up the way you want it to. So I did that and put it as an image widget in my card. Cool. And then I just did another one an hour ago. So please give me a technical guru on Brain. I intentionally actually did give it a typo, and Dialogflow was smart enough to still understand what I meant. So here's another card with some other pieces of information. So now that we've seen the demo, let's break down how we actually built it. So we will go to Dialogflow in the console. So this is where you go to actually set up this part of your bot. So you start out by creating an agent, and this agent is functionally everything you need for your bot. So I called mine Smart Accounts Bot. And then the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to define it some entities. So Dialogflow understands basic natural language, like asking questions, but it's not going to know like what infrastructure is or what G Suite is. So we need to tell it about those special keywords, and that's what defining entities is all about. So for our queries, we had 3 pieces. So we had account, role, and skill. Vertical is just like another piece of information, and that's in the spreadsheet. but let's look at how we add entities. So let's just look at the skill. So I've listed all the different types of skills that exist, and I've listed some synonyms, and I've enabled what we call fuzzy matching. So that allows it to be really flexible with, it'll be forgiving about typos, and like it'll know how to translate some things. So if someone says infrastructure, I can expect in my code that it'll be infra. I don't have to expect every type of variation. In G Suite, you know, a lot of times we talk to people who maybe only use a few products, like maybe they only use Gmail or maybe they only use Sheets, or they've been using G Suite for a very long time and they remember back when it was called Google Apps. Whatever they ask for, we can translate it back to this variable right here. So that was step one, defining the entities. Then step two is defining the action. So we've made the nouns, now let's make the verb. So the intent is what the user is asking for, the user's intentions. When you create a bot, automatically you get a default welcome intent. So that'll be a message like when you add a bot to a room, or if you ask just like, hi bot, they'll give you some sort of message. To have a really good user experience, you want to put instructions, especially if you have a really robust bot, on how to use it, so it trains the user to be able to use your bot. So I defined one called lookup Googler because that is the action that we're doing. So we start here, those entities we just defined, we need to tell Dialog Flow what we need for this action. So I actually need all three of those entities, role, skill, and account. And for this one, I'm gonna make them all required. So if the user forgets to give me one of them, it'll give this prompt, you know, do you want the lookup details of account manager or specialist? So we have it for all of those. But you can code your bot in different ways. Like let's say if I didn't make skill required, maybe it'll just give me everyone back in the cluster. So you can kind of play around with it. So those were the parameters. This is what I'll get in my code. And then this is kind of my favorite part of Dialog Flow is giving it the training phrases. So you want to have a lot of these because these are the types of phrases that are specific to your bot, and Dialog Flow needs to train on them so it knows how to deconstruct those input queries. So we have a few here. This first one is who is the, or let's go to down here, who is on networking for Waymo? And then it'll actually break it down for you and you can actually adjust it. So we have networking as a skill, and then Waymo is the account. And you just want to add enough to where Dialog Flow will start to understand them. And then over here in the side panel, you can actually test it out with Google Assistant. So if you use Dialog Flow, you can actually make your bot easily integrate with lots of different platforms. So I could write the same bot and with only like a little toggle, you can use it in multiple different places. So we have chat on by default, but I could also display it in, you know, Facebook Messenger, Slack, Twitter. There's just like a lot of different places where you can go. Twilio if you're doing phones. So yeah, so that is how we set up that bot. If this is really quick, actually it's really quick even for me, I will mail out some code labs that break down like how to do this step by step and further information on what each part actually is. But basically every bot has an intent. Actually, I think that's my next slide. So let me go back to the slides. Yeah, so every bot has an agent, and then those agents have intents, and then those intents have training phrases, parameters, and then you craft your response. So all of this is actually happening. You get all this in the code from your agent, and then I write my Sheets code, and then my my response in JSON and push it back to the agent. And then the agent knows, okay, because I've tagged the responses for Hangouts, that it knows to send that back to Hangouts so it can render the card for me. And these can get way complicated. So this is a diagram on a fictional banking app. So you could have multiple different types of intent. So you could maybe start with like a checking info intent. You know, just tell me how much money is in my bank account. And then you can chain it to other actions, and then it'll pass that information along through that flow. So these bots can get pretty big, and a lot of places use them for support or doing actions like this. So let's recap what we've built today now that we have everything put together. So we started out with the sheet. This is a tool that our coworkers were already using. Then we trained an agent to handle the natural language questions and serve them from the sheet. And we glued this together with, actually here we're using Firebase functions. It's a different library, but the Firebase function has one that specifically works with Dialog Flow, so it's just nicer. But you can use the SDK to integrate with whatever type of server you have. And we serve all of this in the product that they are using. So no need for them to open another tab and pull out the sheet, especially like if you're working with docs and sheets that maybe have a lot of people in them, or maybe you're like me and always have like 100 tabs open. This saves you the latency of having to wait for that. Then we augmented this by integrating other services like contacts and maps. And it doesn't have to stop there. You can use any API in your Firebase function and add it to your chat universe. So now it is your turn. Here are some resources that really helped me when I was trying to learn all of this a few months ago. I can email this out or something, but it's some of the links are documentation, like Dialog Flow. It breaks down. There's like a nice guide that breaks down each piece by piece, and there's a lot of diagrams. The second one is it's a kind of neat code lab. It is you program your own TV guide in a chatbot. And then we have Google Sheets and Hangouts. So that is how you can get started with those. And you don't have to use JavaScript. We have quick starts in every language from like Java to Ruby, C#, and whatever works best for you. And the code for the second bot, the smart bot, I actually put on GitHub here. And that configuration that I showed you in the console, you can actually export it as a zip. So I checked in the zip. So then you can download it and then import it into Dialog Flow. So everything will already be set up, and then you can deploy the code and test it out and then like go through it and figure out what's going on. But yeah, tweet at me if you have any questions or any tips, or if you've used these services before and you have any feedback, I would love to hear it. My job is literally to take feedback from y'all and take it back to the development team so they can make this APIs and services better, because you know, what's the point of having them if no one can use them? That's just my opinion. But yeah, so I'll post these links somewhere. And then I had one short little plug after. We're doing something kind of crazy next Tuesday. I think y'all have been visited by DevRel people a lot in the past. We are streaming 24 hours of talks, and I'll actually be doing essentially this talk again, but we have like a New York section where we'll be hosting for 8 hours, and there's talks on everything from like Java and Kotlin to Kubernetes and other ML APIs. The schedule is up at this link, and it's completely free. You just have to register. But if you want to learn more or just have something running in the background, there'll be content streaming all day. Cool. So I will stop sharing. Are there any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Cool.
Let me see how I phrase it. on Dialog Flow, if let's say a user wants to do something, right? But then the user stops and doesn't speak.
Mhm.
How can I have the bot ask the user or prompt the user for input?
So if the user doesn't speak, then it kind of just stops. But what you can do is, I quickly showed a screen that had all the intents. There's a welcome intent, and then there's one right above it called the fallback intent. So like say you get kind of something that the bot doesn't understand from the user, you can go to that fallback intent. But as far as the user just stops, like unless you were already going to push a card, it's kind of up to the user.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's like some way that you can tell the agent to like push a card or a text response. The way you would do that in a non-dialog flow chatbot is like just do the webhook where you're pushing it asynchronously.
Yeah.
But it would be kind of like you're already kind of in a flow.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I guess you could kind of make like a hybrid of both.
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But my biggest hurdle is that because if I have a follow-up intent, then sometimes I hit a wall in which maybe a user wants to go back to the beginning or ask something else, but I'm still stuck in that.
So going back instead of just chaining new intents. Oh, that's really interesting. You should post that in like a Dialog Flow user group. Yeah, I don't know the answer to it, but maybe someone does. Oh, have you actually done it before?
No, I know Alan is going to tell me to do that too.
Oh, I see Alan raising his hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty new to this. Alan probably has all the answers.
No, I hardly have I raised my hand for another question. I hardly have all the answers, but Raphael, as always, feel free to post that on Stack Overflow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then send us the link for it so we can make sure it gets answered.
Yes, I will. I actually found a way of this week of uploading a bunch of training for the agent just using text files. So that's pretty cool.
Cool. Yeah, when you can upload them as formatted, comment separated. Yeah, much easier than putting it all in individually. Can you do that for training phrases, or does that only work for entities?
You could do it for training phrases too.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, I just discovered that like 2 days ago. And you can actually create intent from that training without having to go get out and create it.
Super cool. The code lab that I listed, it shows you how to do that in the UI. So if you want to bulk upload all of your strings, it shows you how to paste it in there.
Okay.
Yeah, or for everyone else who's done it before.
I think Scott just asked something. Yes, it does.
Oh, Eva, I see your...
Did Alan get to ask his question?
No, I have a question. So I saw in the documentation that you can attach buttons to cards.
Mm-hmm.
How do those buttons get processed in Dialog Flow? Because I can see in the documentation that they can be processed with AppScript or they can call a URL. It's not clear how to get that in Dialog Flow, how to send that to Dialog Flow for processing.
Yeah, are you using the Dialog Flow cards out of the box, or are you using like a custom payload with buttons?
The document I read said you have to use a custom payload.
Okay, yeah, I don't know it off the top of my head, but I think I remember you asking about this in the GDE chat a few weeks ago.
Oh, I did? Okay, sorry,
Maybe.
I'd forgotten if so. I'm
no,
sorry.
It's like on my to-do list. I don't know off the top of my head. If you want to send me what you're looking at in the documentation, we can connect on Monday.
Will do. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think Dialog Flow has the built-in cards on the assistant side because
yeah, I can actually.
Yeah, but the assistant cards are different than the the Google Chat cards.
So there is like something really important about that actually. There are different cards. So you can make basic chat cards in the console. It has a little builder for it. But if you want to do anything that doesn't fit the format that it gives you, you do have to do a custom payload. And what you need to know is if you are pushing a custom payload to a Dialogflow agent, make sure it has like an extra key wrapping everything that just Hangouts : there is a blog post specifically about that. But yeah, it's actually, it's in the code that I have up where it just wraps that custom payload with Hangouts outside of it. So the agent knows what to do.
Yeah,
but it's hard to find out on your own until
I can get it to show the card with the buttons, but I can't get it to do anything when I click on
with
the
the
buttons.
action once you've clicked it. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Great, thank you.
Well, oh wait, am I still displaying? I might not be. What type of button was it? Just a regular button that has a URL,
It was
or
a,
was it an image button?
Well,
Because I
that's
think
part
the
of the
regular buttons do work.
that's part of the question is what does work and what do I need to attach to it?
So I've gotten the button ones and the image URLs to work, but they don't do any crazy actions. They just kind of go to another website. But show me what you're doing next week.
So it has to go to a URL. It can't be sent back to Dialogflow?
I don't know about sending it back to Dialogflow. I just know that like basic getting out to another URL works.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to do specifically is trigger, I mean, since I'm talking, basically what I'm trying to do is duplicate a suggestion chip like functionality since it doesn't have suggestion chips. So I was hoping to have the buttons trigger something in Dialogflow because that's where all my logic is currently in a Dialogflow webhook. So I'm trying to figure out how to duplicate this.
Interesting.
I will message you. What is the best way to message you is through Twitter?
Yeah, Twitter.
Very good. Thank you. I won't take up more time. There are other questions.
No, these are really good questions. Yeah, we should definitely pass them along to the Dialogflow team.
And I'll read Scott's question if it hasn't shown up. Does Dialogflow support working with 2 or more languages at once? Learning Japanese and want to make a bot to help practice vocabulary.
Yeah, I think I zipped through that slide, but let me look at the number. I mean, it's at least compatible with like 15 languages. The numbers here are like 15 or 20.
I think some of the keyword there is at once. So and I'm guessing Scott's question is something like, can you ask a question in either English or Japanese?
I wonder if you just have to make sure that you have enough training phrases. Does anyone know on the call?
I don't know. I do know that multilingual support.
So.
I know that multilingual support doesn't work on with actions on Google, but I don't know how it works for other Dialogflow agents.
Well, like in all of the marketing content for Dialogflow that we see, like it is like multilingual, like multiple languages supported, build an international, support chatbot. So yeah, we can figure out how to do that.
Yeah, actually, you could just simply say, can you switch to like English or Spanish or Japanese?
Oh, cool.
There's a pre-built agent for it. Cool.
Awesome. I learned something. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, some of those pre-built agents could get very, very in-depth.
Cool. Any more questions?
I did have one more question actually that I forgot about. I noticed that the library that used to be known as the Dialogflow fulfillment JavaScript library.
Are you about to tell me it's deprecated? Yeah, it is. Yeah. It will be deprecated. I actually don't know the timeline, and I'm going to work on that soon as converting it to just using the SDK.
Well, what's the replacement for it?
Just using the SDK. I don't have any examples or actually, no, I might have an example for it, but I'll send it to you.
So just parsing the JSON and returning JSON.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I just wanted to make sure that was where things are going. Very good.
I really like the library that you're talking about. I really like it because it makes things like pretty easy. But yeah, it is getting deprecated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some of the integrations are getting deprecated too. I know Twitter is ending in like a month.
Mm.
Yeah, I actually just added that integration 2 days ago, and was testing
Oh
it.
man.
And then I got the notification, by the way, this is ending, so you need to migrate it.
Is there anything else that integrates with Twitter bots like Slack?
I tried
Kit
Slack.
or BotKit?
Is Slack still on?
What's the framework BotKit that's popular?
Not sure. Well, let's see. Slack still there. Bitbucket.
Does anybody else have a question? If you think of anything, any more questions, we'll actually be answering questions live on air next Tuesday about all this stuff. So, it's not, let me know.
So yeah, I have a question. Can a bot like learn user information, like keep user information?
Yeah, so the flip side of that, because like this in the examples I showed, it's like you're using ML to do the input, but what about the output, like learning what the answers are? I know that you can integrate knowledge bases.
Yes.
And I think there's some way to do it with that, but I've never done it myself.
Okay. I think somebody wrote a question on the chat. Are the training phrases similar to the DB table that is created, or is an API reference?
To the, let me look at it. Yeah. What Alan said. Human stuff.
Sorry, I wasn't trying to steal your thunder there.
No, you're totally fine. Thank you. That's funny that it preferred the word queue instead of guide for your autocorrect.
I do have another question. What does the team look into when accepting an action for the assistant, like to deploy it for public use?
For Google Assistant?
Yeah, like if I create a bot for the assistant using Dialog Flow, obviously there's a beta submission and then there is an actual public release. What feedback can you give me so that I can get accepted for both beta and the public?
So I don't know anything about Google Assistant. I think Alan actually has experience with them, but I can try to connect you with one of them.
So the quick answer is if you're approved for beta, you're automatically approved for public.
Okay.
So once they've approved beta, you're allowed to go public whenever you want. That's your choice completely.
Okay.
If you don't go through beta, though, they will need to approve you before you go public. That make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Do you have something in beta?
No, I got denied. They gave me some feedback. It wasn't anything too big. I knew why I was gonna get denied the first time, because you cannot leave the assistant open listening, and I knew that almost every intent I had left them open. So I was wondering if they were gonna catch that, and they told me to change the name of my bot, because
Oh, they are really particular about that.
yeah, they were like, we cannot be. It has to be clearly two things, and miss doesn't count as one of those things.
Yeah, I think like the assistant simulator will kind of give you some hints on good names.
Yeah. There's another question in the chat, by the way.
Yeah, Shifan asked the question that they missed the start of the lecture. Can you bring up the slide that has the your references again, so that
Yes,
people know
I
where
can.
to?
Well, should I actually just paste it in chat or just bring up the slide? I'll do both.
Pasting in chat works.
Okay,
I also put the photo on Meetup
okay, perfect.
and tweeted it at your
Awesome.
handle from Julie G. Bronx. Thank you.
Yeah, I really like this code lab on building the TV guide one. It is for Assistant, it's not for Hangouts, but I'm going to post a code snippet that converts the end of that code lab into a Hangouts chatbot. But basically, instead of doing the response that you do for your assistant, or actually you can do both, you put in the JSON for the cards for the agent. So like I have like a case in there. You can check what platform the request is coming from. It's a field, I think it's called request source. And that's how you can decide, how you're going to respond.
Any last questions for Anu?
Well, thank you all for having me. I really appreciate it. Thanks for, I'm excited to get together on a Friday afternoon.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. It's always appreciated.
Yeah, thank y'all.
So from here, I'm going to stop the recording and then start it again, just so we can